Peace, family. Sorry about that. I just got in. So let me just get myself together. We're going to get started 1 second. Thank everybody for tuning in. Thank all my supporters, man. Our donors that support the Burning Bush Tabernacle Science Temple and School. That send donations for research and books that we can use and debunk Eurocentric propaganda and any spookism that brothers and sisters or whoever brought to us, because we haven't challenged things from academia perspective. So I had a long day today, man. I was on campus and we spoke on some things because I explained things to my brothers and sisters. I got my master's degree from Grand Canyon University in first century Christian leadership and first century history. And the reason why I do things more is because how are we going to know each angle if we don't jump in the fire and challenge pseudo-academia? We don't have to argue with anything. When I tell brothers, yes, we educated, and we also are, we should study on our own. But it's some things that's, to me, that's very important, like wisdom and education, and proving who you are through peer-reviewed scholarly research, all through history. Teaching real craftsmanship, teaching stuff from a perspective to show you like, hey man, the father of civilization is the Asiatic black man, peace, Islam. And we have to just study these things, man, so we won't get caught up in religious dogma and people just telling us allegorical stories and false religion and false history, no matter what color the U is. But I'm just, like I said, more as I had a long day on campus today, and most of my lectures, most Moors are not there. It's academia. And today I did a lecture when I debunked the true meaning of Hiram, Abiff, and the veiled symbolism, Islam, and I did it from a scholarly perspective. And that's why I do a lot of my lectures and things on college campuses, because it's not from religious dogma, and no one is up there with feelings. And so it's scholarship. And as you do scholarship, you can prove who you are all through history. And that's what I do, and I love it. And some of the research that I showed today, I'm going to show my brothers. Every person that patronized my lecture today, they all donated and purchased the literature. And not for the prices I give it to my brothers and sisters, for the high price that I ask, because it's research. And then I come back home and deliver lectures to my brothers and sisters for free. And I give the research and the literature that I've paid thousands of dollars to get my education, and also the research that I've done at museums and things. And I challenge people to research the information that I have and see how much they try to charge you on Amazon for the research. See it. And see how much my information and my research costs. Like the hidden cause of the Civil War and the African and the true history of of Western civilization. Pull those things up and see how much that scholarship costs. And I've done the work already. And all I ask my brothers and sisters is support, a donation. I give the wisdom to my brothers and sisters for a tittle, for a small fraction of donation. The research that I gathered and compiled, but the information that comes from other scholarship and research that costs, I give it for a fraction. Exactly, like Moors. Before I even jump into the lecture, let's just show some things. Well, we already showed that, man. We show what things is all about. We don't have to keep showing things over and over and over. But hold on, I'm sorry. Let me put this in. But my mother told me something. My mother told me one thing, and I stick to this daily. The way we learn is by repetition. And so I'm willing to repeat what I've said over and over about Pascal Beverly Randolph, one of the first Rosicrucians. This man was not a European. Research the history of the brother, the science. Research this history, Pascal Beverly Randolph. Research it. Yep, Hiram the black man, we're going to demonstrate that. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to demonstrate it. Look at these wisdom. The prophet been talked about all through history. These are books that I print on my print press, and you can look on Amazon to see how much they cost. And then when I send my reading list out, you see the verge of how much I give the information for. A tittle of what they try to charge you. And that's why most brothers and sisters, I don't care who they are, Moors, Negro, black, and color, whatever, they don't have the research because it costs. And I'm telling you, I'm introduced my affiliation, my affiliation with the university, my affiliation with the Philosophical Research Society, my affiliation with the Moorish Science Temple, and my adept degrees in metaphysics has allowed me to do certain things. That's all. Research the Tavistock Institution of Human Relations. Research this. This is what we're supposed to do, teach over and over from peer-reviewed scholarly research, the golden age of the Moor. Research how much this literature on Amazon. I have them. I have a printing press. So when brothers say, put your money where your mouth is, that's what I do. When brothers say, why do you charge for information? I say, because this is what Negro, Black, and Colors and some Moors do. We'll go spend our money on bull crap and support others with clothing, but then something that's supposed to be dear to you, you want somebody to give it to you for free? And everything they've done, we did the work? No, we break things down. And that's why I challenge a person to be a student. Man, I'm willing to take my teeth out my mouth and get on Similac. That's why when I research, man, it's films, it's documents. The Asians, I mean the Africans of Asia. When I show you books, man, hold on, Morris, we're gonna jump in this. More, the work is done. They couldn't destroy all the writings in Alexander, but they couldn't destroy the stuff that was written in stone. I'm telling you, and the stone, the writings reveal everything, man. Nothing is new. That's why when I tell brothers, they think of something new. These books, this research is old research, old wisdom that they try to lock up. I mean, like, let me see if can I show you some pictures of things. I had some of the stuff, man. They've been found the Olmec heads. Man, they've been describing things in history. All in these books, the big old weight. I think I found one of them. Let me see. I mean, look at all these just stone figures all over. This is just one. But like when I talk about the pyramids out here in Grand Canyon, don't you know they've been found the pyramids in Grand Canyon with artifacts all in it years ago in the early 1900s. But most Negro, Black, and Colors and a lot of Moors don't know because we're not coming from scholarship. We're just going on what somebody tell us. Not going to the museums, not doing the work, not seeing the history and connecting all the dots through biblical history, through history. Look at the Olmec heads. This is old research, man. This is old research. We can connect the dots. Also in Asia, where they got the whole story of Deuteronomy in stone that they couldn't erase. I played the Africans of one, but it's like 8 parts. Look at these monuments, man. This is no fake stuff. These are real. This is real pictures and statues and things, man. In history. Or our story. Research how much the 101, research this wisdom. Research this wisdom. We don't come from no biased place. Research this wisdom. And then you ask a professor, a scholar, what did they call Negro, Blacks, and Colors before 1825? And I guarantee you they tell you. Why this research, The Stolen Legacy, Greek Philosophy is Stolen Egyptian Philosophy by George M. James, PhD, University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff. Man, the research is done. I got this, man, and put it and got all the chapters and put it for easy read. And we distribute it for our people. I mean, the work was originally published in New York by the Philosophical Library in 1954. The content herein has been slightly edited to mark word corrections and in organization to assist readability. Exactly. I have it. And like I say, it's certain brothers. When I go to the Philosophical Society in Los Angeles, when I go there, if they let me record some of the stuff, they got a big old black Buddha in there. And a lot of the wisdom is in there. A lot of lower Masons, they pray, they love Manly P. Hall, but that's lower level wisdom. They were all with Moors. That's when I tell people I don't brag about nothing, but I have full access and I have literature of things that can debunk any Eurocentric propaganda. And it's just from scholarship. But the author, George Granville Monarch James, was born in Georgetown, Guyana, South America. His parents were Reverend Lynch B. and Margaret E. James. George studied at Durham University in Britain. And after a period at the University of London, his doctorate at Columbia University in New York. Oh, yep, I'm going to give that too. I'm going to give that all my books and all the books that we print from other authors. And then you will see my book list is a small fraction. That's why I say this stuff is elementary. The author has also, listen what the brother written. Okay. He then qualified to teach mathematics, Latin, and Greek. Later, he was professor of logic and Greek at Livingstone College in Salisbury, North Carolina, for 2 years before teaching at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. The author has also written the following pamphlets: Health Week in Newcastle, Intermarriage, published in London, England, Black People Under Germany, published in New York, The Need of a New Education for the Subject of People of the World, published in Arkansas, USA. That's right, but but it's so much, but it's so much more. It's so much more. It's so much more to when we get to first century history and we remove the lower ego and we say, hey man, we connect to the science and we navigate. But the need of the, okay, I gave you that one. The probable causes of religious apathy in our institution of higher learning and the proposal of a new naturalism, published in Arkansas, USA. And second, he has also authored the following articles titled The Church and the New Mentality, Religion as an Inductive and Progressive Science, The Anti-Classical Wave, The First Step into Negro Reconstruction, is to what? Know Thyself, a series of 12 articles published in New York Age and the Zion Quarterly, The Influence of Mathematics upon the Mentally and Character of Students, published in Georgia Herald. We break all this down. But this right here, Morris, this is the research that I think it was 24 professors at my lecture I did today on at campus, and a lot of the students, they have a thing called the Scholars Roundtable, and graduates that graduated that speak on particular topics, they actually come back and they support my nonprofit. You know, so this history right here, this is like 800 pages. This is like actually 500 pages. Breaks down everything, everything. So you don't have to be caught in no bull crap. I mean, I'm gonna show you a little bit, and I'm gonna give you just the introduction, but I'm gonna show you a picture of the beginning. The sacred rock of Abu Simbel, ABU-SIMBEL, showing the secret holy place in the near rear. When you hear people give you allegorical stories and esoteric and exoteric, but they're not explaining. Look at these temples. That's the Holy of Holies. You see that? You see that, Morris? You see the man? You see the gentleman in the back with the fez on? That's the Holies of Holies. That's the gate. Look at those statues. That's what they was erasing. Hiram, Abiff, who it was. We gonna dig. We gonna teach science of the real craft, not no symbology. Somebody explaining, getting you caught up in bull crap. Because they explaining some allegory, signs, and symbols that ain't got nothing to do with nothing. So let me just give you an introduction of this. Man's first hope of immortality and the dawning of the critic scene. The ancient empire, 3500 BC to 2004 to 75 BC. The earliest Egyptian remains. The boast of Mitten and the first autobiography, 3000 BC. The Palermo stone, Egypt's first historical record, 2750 BC. The secret pyramid text. Biography, travel and romance. The words of Uni, the king's friend, 2550 BC. Inscriptions of Harkuf, the first explorer, 2525 BC. Tale of the magicians, earliest stories. All these Egyptian history. The precepts of Hotep, the oldest book in the world. The Middle Empire, religious and semi-historic text. The coffin text, a mother's charms against evil spirits. The first poem of pessimism. Songs of Harper, the first misanthrope, the tomb record of Baron and Amini, councils of King Entef. All the wisdom is here. All the wisdom is here, so you can debunk anything and all the pictures of what they mean. Let me show you one of the pictures. Thought, the ibis-headed god of books, of writing, and all of the science, the chief friend of man after death. I mean, don't y'all know when a European or Prince Holiday dressed up in all black, don't you know that symbolized the dark matter, the melanin, that black suit? They got dressed in it because it's, man, come on, man. We're gonna really teach this science, and then I challenge you to research it. I'm gonna show you one more picture. Best, god of music and dance, protector of children, yet half beast, a dwarf with a long tail. We'll break down all the allegorical signs and symbols, the history, man. The history of it. It have all the Egyptian books in here. The book of the dead, the book of the coming forth by. It breaks everything down, man. So you are not. You shouldn't be ignorant to the fact that the wisdom is there. And you can debunk anything from scholarship, Amen Ra, the hidden or eternal God, later connected with the sun god Re, and regarded as chief of all gods of the present life. That's why in the biblical scriptures, Amen Ra, it's in there. I mean, we talk about things that can be proven, and we got to break these things down. Taking off the old, putting on the new. Nut, the world mother who brought forth all existing things, assisted the deceased and his soul on their journey through the underworld by giving food and water to them both. You got to understand that allegorical story. But I'm not going to go through all that. If you could try to pull this up on Amazon, which you probably can't, because this research comes from Cambridge and Oxford, and they try to charge ridiculous amounts of money for it. But if brothers want the research, you can hit me up, and you can donate, but it costs a fraction of what it costs if you buy from any other platform. What I ask for donation is a tittle, cheaper than some George that we'll pay for and complain. If we want wisdom. But more is all I'm trying to do, man, is just show all through history, man, that we are thinkers and we come from scholarship, man, and we don't have to debunk anything because education and wisdom comes from us. And I'm not here to try to say, oh, I'm better than someone because I have education, there were some degrees or nothing, but it doesn't mean nothing. But what I'm here to debunk things and say, I jumped in the belly of the beast. And I have the same education they have. And I can sit at the table and tell them when they're lying, when they're giving pseudo-academia, when they're trying to use linguistic apartheid, when they're trying to arbitrarily explain something to you, when they're trying to get you caught up in connotation, explanation of things. And we don't rock with that. We understand what etymology and etymon is. We understand what adverbs is. We understand what nouns is. We understand what predicates is. Because we are master craftsmen. But I just want to show some things like, before I claimed my nationality, I got one of my worldly degrees, and it was from Clear University, and I got my bachelor's degree of business and administration and marketing and sales. When I tell brothers and sisters, you are a business, when I break down nonprofit, I do this stuff on college campuses, man, and I show people how to win on this earth plane. And then when I got my master's degree from Grand Canyon University, I have my suffix zone, my bay. As you can see. Like I said, I'm just showing things to where, like, look. And also, I have my dispensation degrees from my amnesty of oath. Look at what an amnesty of oath is. They're from the temple, Moore Science Temple. I also have, I'm going to read a little bit, and then we're going to jump into the lecture. Because we only 18 minutes in. This lecture ain't even going to be long. My noble decree, we the supreme grand body and grand council of the Moore Science Temple of America grant sovereign powers by the great God Allah and his illustrious prophet Noble Drew Ali, greetings to whom it may concern. By the powers of the charter of warrant and dispensation, this supreme grand body bestow a title of nobility to member Kari Hakim Goodman Bey, that is the descendant from the royal house of Judah and of the house of David. So we should end all argument with Moors when they talk about who this tribe, this. If you understand it and reading it, you eliminate the dumb stuff. I just gave it to you if you're Moor. If you say you're Moor. It says that we are the descendants from the royal house of Judah and that of the house of David. By the power of this decree, it is so ordered and commanded by our illustrious prophet Noble Drew Ali, agents of the Christian Church, the Vatican, or any other corporations in the Roman Curia can't molest, trespass, or violate or our divine rights granted by the great God Allah. By the power of this decree, it is so ordered and commanded by our illustrious prophet Noble Drew Ali to register all nobles of the house of El to their title of nobility pursuant to Leviticus 25 and 10. Somebody got to tell me what that is if you don't know. By the power of this decree, it is so ordered and commanded by our illustrious prophet Noble Drew Ali pursuant to the authority, all Moorish Americans are exempt from prosecution, etc. But we got to know what that is, man. Not know you exempt from no crime. 720, Allah. May Allah bless and protect always upon the house of Bey, title of nobility, certificate Noble K. Goodman Bey, register of the noble house of Bey, a descendant of the royal house of Judah. And these just the copies. I have everything locked up in my safe. I like to make copies of things. When brothers ask, I say, just because you say you was born here don't make you a citizen. You don't have an amnesty of oath. Research it. The house of Bey, the title of nobility, 720, Moorish American Muslim. This is all you get when you were Moor, you do things through the Moorish Temple of America, which is your birthright. which is your birthright. You don't have to go through any other channels. We the Supreme Grand Body and Grand Council of Moorish Science Temple of America. I gave you that. Okay, the Nobel registered the House of Bay, descendant of the Royal House of Judah. Our 720 dispensation, we the Supreme Grand Body of Council of the Moorish Science Temple of America, deriving its power and authority from great God. Okay, gave you that. Okay, let me finish this. Whom Allah has sent to redeem the people from the fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America. The said Supreme Grand Body and Council is authorized and empowered to initiate and confer degrees. Let me say this again. The Supreme Grand Body and Council is authorized and empowered to initiate and confer degrees of said temple upon any person or persons duly proposed, qualified, and approved in accordance with the established forms, usage of the laws and ethics of the illustrious Prophet Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish Science Temple of America. So what's that? Understanding your divine and holy creed. That's esoteric and exoteric. Understanding the 360 and the 720. You getting caught up, most Moors getting caught up in the esoteric and the exoteric. Just allegory and parables. That ain't got nothing to do with nothing. But the Science Temple of America is jurisdiction to administer to all true members all the privilege and benefits to all Muslims of the West to Noble Khari Goodman Bey. 720 degrees is hereby granted dispensation of the said depth as here to the vast estate and express trust of Noble Drew Ali in the dominion of Kush, northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and southwest was his father's domain of Africa. etc. Old man Kush and his family are his first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan, pursuant to U.S. Department of Justice, capital BM $ HR 1WD 144-35-0, which is the agreement. Our mobile missionary decree certificate. Supreme Grand Body. Our charter of warranted. Let me read something to you, then we're going to jump into this lecture. Supreme Grand Body and Supreme Grand Council of the Moorish Science Temple of America in Mecca have been vested the sovereign powers by the great God of Allah and his illustrious prophet Noble Drew Ali to confer degrees of a Muslim of the West to a person or persons that has been raised 180 degrees from a shadow grave, son of a widow in the north gate. So let me stop right there and I'm going to finish. So that's why when I give wisdom, when I tell brothers and sisters, there's no reason why you should go under European or Prince Hall. Because if you were more, you get the 32 and 33 degrees in the temple when the turban and the fez is placed on your crown, your hippocampus. And you should understand at least the basic 360 degree of wisdom. So, as I said again, to confirm degrees of a Muslim of the West to a person or person that has been raised 180 degrees from a shadow grave, son of a widow in the north gate. I, Noble Khari Goodman Bey, my obligation as a Muslim missionary by free will, the obligation of the nobility, of the elect of the Moorish Science Temple of America, teaching the Asiatics of North, South, and Central America to love instead of hate, Moors. That's what we should be. When I say the only oath that I've taken is love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and my 2 cents, health and wealth, and debunk Eurocentric propaganda and stand truth on that, on things that we can prove in history, who we are, biblically and historically. As I travel the burning sand from the east to the west in 39 celestial steps with my staff of comfort, my companion, the beast of burden, and my Hebrew master logo of perfection. Here we go again. When I tell Moors, what are you reading if you're dissing anything? You damn sure ain't reading your Circle 7 Quran if you're dissing the Hebrew master, because it tells you in your Circle 7 Quran. That's the deity or the oracle of Allah. Also in the Silent Brotherhood of the East, it tells you what the logos is. Logos is Greek. It tells you what the circle and the circle is. Come on, Moors. That's elementary wisdom. And we going around dissing stuff because we're not knowing who we are. We still operating on religious dogma, and that's low-level wisdom. That's not high science. That's not 720. That's not adapt wisdom. We're going to teach this. Watch. I hereby here upon my holy Quran, my Circle 7, demonstrate my degrees to raise fallen humanity. To raise fallen humanity from its imperfections with the degrees of social duties, justice, charity, gratitude, and sincerity. In my travels, Allah, guide my feet in love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and I shall not give ear to falsehood, hypocrisy, and deceit. As I travel the burning sands, I possess my charter of warrant and my dispensation, my authority to pass through all ports, unmolested, with my divine rights and privileges. All sons of Allah must hold true to its obligation to nobles, Muslims, and the Mohammedan by words and deeds. See, it's a certain way that we should operate when you get welcomed in all houses. We don't operate niggardly. You know, My Moorish American side, that's our baptism paper. We also got adoption papers and everything when you adopt it from the Christian codes per se. So if a Moor say they nationalized through the Moorish Science Temple, they know what I'm saying because they have everything that I have. Noble K. Goodman Bay, this is your nationality and identification card for the Moorish Science Temple of America and birthrights for the Moorish Americans, etc. Listen to me clearly, Moors. We honor all the divine prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. May the blessings of the God, our Father, Allah, be upon you that carry this card. I do by here declare that you are a Muslim under the divine law of the Holy Quran of Mecca. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I am a citizen of the USA, Noble Drew Ali, the Prophet. 5933 West Madison, Chicago, Illinois, 60644. And if Moors don't understand the language, we need to study and understand why certain things is done. If not, we need to stop arguing like mad dogs and understand the verbiage and the language. So let's dig, man, because I'm still early. The thing when I laugh at brother when they diss masonry and science because there's no light in them. Research Angelo Solomon. My picture kind of got watery, but I have a lot of stuff in my folders. I'm going to read a little bit to you, and we're going to debunk this bull crap where brothers be getting you caught up in spookism. Brothers, if I see brothers showing pictures of different feather with a European masonry, Prince Hall with all the wisdom on it, Allah, Islam, Arabic on there, and you're not understanding what that wisdom was about, and you sitting up here arguing over fake stuff, over allegorical things, talk about somebody killing themselves, talk about they doing this. That's all allegorical stuff, man. They're keeping you off the main mission. That is about you. That Hiram Abiff is the Asiatic man. I'm telling you, man. We sitting up here caught up with somebody getting you caught up in stories, bullcrap, propaganda. I'm telling you. If you understand, no wisdom come from the West. Research Egypt and King Menkaure. Research all the science with his left foot forward with the skirt. It's all science, all comedic science. But Angelo Solomon, 1721, 1796, is historically recognized as the first Moorish Freemason. What did I say? The first Moorish Freemason, born in Congo, Cameroon, at age 7, he was kidnapped and sold into slavery. In Europe, he was the slave child, and they paraphrased him the child boy of a prominent Sicilian lady. Later, at the age 16, he was sold to a royal family in Vienna, Australia. So Moors, use your hippocampus and use your brain. If Moors ruled Spain for 700 years, what women was over there? What women would they, procreating with? That's simple logic. We get caught up in niggardly stuff. So we move on. We understand that. Later at age 16, he was sold to a royal family in Vienna, Austria. There he so impressed his masters with his remarkable intelligence, they chose to educate him. He spoke 6 languages fluently and could write 3 of them fluently as well. He was also a master swordsman, war hero, chess specialist, navigation expert, concert composer, Moors, and a tutor to royalty. He tutored them. He was the subject of Mozart's popular opera, The Magic Flute. Did you know that, Moors? When I tell you, we can debunk all Eurocentric propaganda. I'm telling you, if you're a scholar and if you're a student. Solomon is considered one of the most learned people in his generation, as well as one of the greatest Vienna citizens of all time. In his mid-20s, Moors, Solomon distinguished himself as a studious and honorable subject with his masters, and actually freedom through his moral character and education. As a free citizen of Vienna, the world's citadel of culture and enlightenment at that time, Moors, Solomon, now a member of the royal Habsburg household, continued to pursue a personal course of erudite and moral excellence, Moors. He was a Vienna celebrity. He was a dashing figure and personality widely admired for his handsomeness, his fashionable Moorish attire, and social grace. I can show you all back in the day, it's all Moorish attire. When you look up the Black Peak, Zwarte Piet of the Netherlands, they're not going to tell you, did nobody come down on chimney to be black. It's all Moors. They're not going to tell you. You see Santa Claus, that Catholic stuff, all garbage. He was an excellent dancer, romancer of the elite social affairs. He married in 1768, and in the same year, he joined the True Concord Freemasons Lodge, which included who? Mozart, and who else? Haydn. He eventually became the Grand Master of the lodge and rewrote and refined its rituals and other literature. The Solomon Freemasonry literature style spread all over Europe and around the world, eventually even influencing modern Freemason literature and rituals, Moors. Thus, Solomon is called the father of pure Masonic thought. The Moorish Rite hails Angelo Solomon as its patriarchal figure. He is a profound model of early Moorish black achievement. And to this day, Moors in Vienna, he is celebrated in song and dance and national memory. And today in America, 2 Moorish Rite lodges so far have been named in Solomon's honor. This is research that we can find. When I say also research Abdul Hamid Suleiman, we got to research the brothers, man. Where's the mystic of the E? Where's that wisdom at? Where's that wisdom at, man? When I say it's nothing new under the sun. What we're supposed to do is teach the craft to our brothers and sisters and show them that it all comes from us. I don't even know what I did with it. But the order of the mystic shrine. I got it somewhere. I showed you guys that later. I showed you that, but I'll find it. Also, man, Moors dissing the clock of destiny because they're not researching. The clock of destiny reveals so much wisdom, Moors. So with that being said, let's dig on this science, man. Let's dig. And this is elementary. We only 30 minutes in. But remember, Moors, when I say certain things, like when I say I don't only debate my equals, per se, and all others should be students, and I teach, and that's a quote coming from John Henry Clark, and I take that dearly. I don't debate anyone. I don't have time to debate. What do we figure a debate? And I say, brothers, you just in one dispensation of history. And then if you're not understanding the language, then, and if you're not dealing with carbon dating, we have to stop right there. When I tell brothers, if the carbon doesn't match the pen, you don't change the carbon dating, you change the pen. And I can show you in history, through the different dispensations, through the Renaissance, through all these different times, to the medieval times, to the Dark Ages, how the pen was changed over and over and over. So if brother understands physics and exams, you got to understand something that goes like this. For every action requires what, Moors? An opposite and equal direct reaction. You got it, right? So when we talk about the subject of Hiram or Abiff, I spoke on this about a long time ago, you know? And Masonic topics that seem to always invoke curiosity amongst the elite and non-Masons, and even Moors that don't understand this science. I say, Moor, how can you diss anything when we show pictures when the prophet first established the conference of the mystic shrine, and then brothers don't even teach about the mystic shrine, and you can show pictures of the mystic shrine. And brothers, I say, well, if you're an adapter and you're a sheik, do you have the literature of the shrine? Man, where did I put it? Let me see, hold on. I got everything, I got so much stuff, man, everywhere. But if you don't have the literature to help your brothers and sisters, how are you going to come from things that can be proven? How are you going to debunk things? If this shows, if we have pictures of how the temple was set up with the nobles of the mystic shrine and detail, what are we dissing? And we don't have the information. And then some brothers try to say that the Moorish Science Temple wasn't established with brothers of the mystic shrine, when it clearly states that there are many Masons shown in the picture. The development of the MSTA saw the influence of many high-degree black Shriners, Masons, and secret societies, particularly the ancient Egyptian Arabic order of nobles of the mystic shrine. Huh? That's what Abdul. That's who our brother Solomon was talking about, right? Started by Noble Ali Raffle Pasha and John George Jones in 1893. And then brothers dissing the craft. We dissing stuff that we don't know about. We don't have that on there because we haven't took no oath. But when you turn that out, the moon and the star is symbolic. I'm telling you, man. So let's finish this teaching. See, what we have to do, man, is we have to debunk the greatest mythological and symbolic Grand Master ever recorded in Masonic history. And there have been many treatises or books written on Hiram Abiff about many, and even scholars, their explanation and analysis given have always focused either on what, Moors? The esoteric, the exoteric, or the Gnostic interpretations of Hiram Abiff. But it still remains as one of the most misunderstood topics, Moors, in the Freemasonic ideological worldview, Moors, which is the interpretation of Hiram Abiff and its deeper relations and Masonic connections to a long-lost people, Moors, that is missing. That's what we got to talk about. So when I talk about interpretation, when research, and this is the research that I've done, when I say we must upstage or debunk or have something to compare to with that Eurocentric propaganda and the Western perspective of things on this particular subject, the context that we're talking about, Hiram Abiff, by personifying him and what? Demystifying this Nubian grandmaster as being directly tied to the history and legacy of the Asiatic black man and woman of America, or the Moorish American. I'm going to give you citations and research. And the research we can start with is chattel slavery and the dehumanization of the so-called African people. Surely the motive and objectives of Hiram Abiff experiences bears close similarities to the so-called African-American Negro. Follow the context and the words that I'm using. Don't get caught up in certain words. We're going to use the words and clear up and debunk things. So this interpretation has always been met with resistance from white supremacy Masons and even Negro Masons, even Prince Hall. I know. I don't care what house you under, as well, who lack the knowledge of self. So no, Moors, other people historically fit the deception or the depiction and the legacy of the symbolic Hiram Abiff, the Masonic character than the so-called American Negro, the so-called ex-slave, the so-called Negro black and color, Moorish American, who arrived to North America in 1555. Just follow the context. I was blessed, Moors, of having elders and being introduced to different houses and being introduced to supreme wisdom. And this has always given me a clear and intellectual advantage over most Moors, Sheiks, Adepts, even Negro Masons, Prince Hall, Caucasian Masons, whatever. And I'm not coming from no arrogant place. I'm coming from scholarship. I've never been in a situation where Europeans and Albions, Masons, and they don't like the wisdom. I only been with Negro, black, and colors, where your wisdom, they try to call it arrogant. Europeans, they say, man, shoot, that's confidence. And that's why when I go speak in lectures, man, I don't like to show checks. My donations be crazy. And all the literature they get. And I be laughing. That's why I say, man, other nationalities know more about Moorish science, know more about the zodiac laws than Negro, black, and colors, and even some Moors. And they going around arguing like something a secret. And they laughing at you. I promise, Moors. No disrespect. It's just what it is. So let's start off with let's clear up some more stuff, man, about this Hiram Abiff, right? The interpretation has always been met with resistance, right? Not from just other nationalities, from your own brothers and sisters and brothers that's under European Masonry, because you're only giving a tittle. You're only giving allegorical explanation of things, right? With a lack of knowledge of self. That's what this is all about. No other people historically fit the depiction and the legacy of the symbolic Hiram Abiff, Moors, right? No one than the so-called American Negro, ex-slave, all that. So we got to clear that up, man. So we get out of that ego, we get out of our lower self, and we get into the wisdom, because I didn't have a talk with Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Noble Drew Ali, Dr. Khalid Muhammad, Dr. Malachi York, all the prophets that walked this earth. I didn't have a conversation with all of them, but we can research the history. I didn't have a conversation with Abdul Solomon. I didn't have a conversation with the Black Hitler of Harlem. I didn't have a conversation with Clarence X. I didn't have a conversation with Amos Wilson. I didn't have a conversation with John Henry Clark, with Sheikh Anta Diop, all our scholars in history that we're supposed to love and keep this going. So, Moors, what is Masonry? Masonry is a system of morality viewed in allegory and illustrated by symbols. And to understand Masonry, Moors, one must become a serious student of symbolism and allegory. I promise you, because when you get caught up in the symbols and allegory, you take that for face value. And I laugh and I say, man, that ain't no science. When I go places, I demonstrate the wisdom, man. When I say you are a business, now I show people how we operate as a business. You must understand what the dynamics of a 501c3 is. That's how you can teach your own people. That's how you can raise money and charitable contributions, man, instead of complaining about somebody else doing it. We do this. But one must become a full student of the symbolism and the allegory, more than particularly having a keen knowledge base of sciences, of etymology, and what? Epistemology. That's why I say when brothers be talking about the art of war is understanding all color of law, all color of history, all color of spirituality. When we not study our own, we study their writings. And when you study their writings, Albert, Churchill, Albert Pike, all their writings come from more science. They just crypting things. And if you're not elite, you won't catch it. But I'm here to give you the keys. But Albert Churchward, who authored the book titled Signs and Symbols of the Primordial Man. And look, when I say, man, if a brother ain't going to show it to you, tell him to sit down. When I say everything, I've studied too much to believe any research that I've read. That's why I study everything. But signs and symbols of a primordial man, right? You got to research this wisdom. But then lower level Masons and 32 and 33 degree Masons in Prince Hall, they like to study Prince Hall, which was a 33 degree Mason. And he had written a number of books on the origin of Freemasonry, and who authored the book titled The Secret Teachings of All Ages. We have all the wisdom, man. When I say when you were initiated and you come from scholarship and love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and my 2 cents, health and wealth, you debunk Eurocentric propaganda. Adam Blavatsky, that secret doctrine or secret wisdom, all taught by Moors. Period. Gerald Massey, who authored also Ancient Egyptian, The Light of the World, and the Book of the Beginnings, and Godfrey Higgins, the book titled Anacapolis. These is all research where you can debunk Eurocentric propaganda. When I tell Moors, if you go to school and they're giving you books and they giving you tests to study, that's program learning. You have nothing to combat with. I have all the research. I don't have any fake degrees. But all of these pieces of the Masonic puzzle, Moors, all of these pieces are pieces of the Masonic puzzle. Right? And the above mentioned scholars that I wrote about, those are white scholars who have bear witness. When I say you don't have to argue with no one. When you see Negro, black, and colors talk about, oh, this person ain't no Judas, you don't have to argue with them. Get the encyclopedia. They'll tell you in their own words. But all these scholars that I've talked about are white scholars who have bear witness to the ancient knowledge being originated out of what? Kemet. And the world owes a debt of gratitude to the what, Moors? To the original Asiatic black man, the Moorish American, and the African woman who stood at the fathers of modern civilization. Moors, the evolution of the sacred Moorish science past and present. We got to know, we should have this. We should have that science. You should research everything. You should research black Freemason when somebody trying to tell you some bull crap, when they say women wasn't in the craft, well, you only stuck in the jurisdiction. It's so much stuff that you need to study. We need to know. We need to know this. Every man a Freemason. Don't you got to know that? The beginning with the first masonry appears to have been cultivated by the antediluvian world. As we read in the book of Genesis, that Jabal, one of the descendants of Lamech, erected and edified, composed of wood and stone, a work wholly impracticable, without some knowledge of the principles of what? Geometry, and the branch particularly which relates to masonry. As all the other sciences are found on geometry or on the words, are governed by an exact adherence to the rule of proportion. This may be deemed the mother art, or handmaid of the delights and conveniences of human life. That this position is made the conjecture we can prove by referring to the Mosaic account of the progress of science, wherein we learned that after Jabal had discovered the doctrine of numbers, Jubal, his brother, found out the art of music, and eventually arising from the former, as music is nothing more than a due proportion of sound. Tubal Cain, I know y'all know that, Masons, soon after became an artificer in metal, in metal, and his daughter invented the method of weaving. I can go on and on. Touch all the avenues. We can touch all the four corners of wisdom. In process of time, masonry arrived at the eminent pitch, and we read that in the year of the world, 1810, and at the building of Babylon, the art was in such estimation that King Nimrod patronized it by his personal sanction, And when Nineveh and other eastern cities were to be built, sent several masons and accomplished the important undertaking. That's why when I show you the black man, the Asiatic man is father of civilization, proved by biblical and historical research, I can show you that. When a person don't want to tell you. So let's finish. Let's dig. Oh, it's more. Official history of the Freemasonry among the colored people in the North America. Where it's pictures, man. The research has been done. We don't have to sit up here and let nobody tell us something. The all-seeing eye and the symbolism in Freemasonry, where you can debunk any Eurocentric propaganda. So let's finish this, man, and we out of here. But excuse me, Moors, the Eurocentric propaganda, Eurocentric masonry, objectively and with an unbiased favor, Moors. This is what we can do. We trace the origin of science, language, supreme deities, religion, architecture, folklore, medicine, mathematics, engineering, etc. to commit or ancient Egypt. And this is why Freemasonry, as a system of academics and learning, is heavily rooted in the 7 schools of liberal arts and 5 schools of architecture styles, Moors. These systems of learning predated the Romans and Greeks, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. Moors, they borrowed the philosophical ideas from the Nubians of ancient Kemet or Egypt, which teaches us that Hiram Abiff is an old prototype or prototype that was first seen and observed in the teachings of Asur, Heru, and Aset, the radiant sun and resurrection of the dead, Moors. All allegorical stories, when you let somebody getting you caught up, I don't care if they're Moor, Prince Hall, whatever, they're getting you caught up in bull crap and they're not telling you what it's really about. It's really about you. And it's really all that stuff have to do with your brain. All those things outside, those symbols have to do with the constellations, what's above, it's everything inside your body. Hiram Abiff, as we speaking on, was a learned man and was commissioned and entrusted by King Solomon to construct a temple. We given a story that will have majesty and valor of the great architecture style seen in Egypt and make Jerusalem and this temple special in design and reverence, right, Moors? Because this edifice would be seen and embraced by the major 3 world religions, being what, Moors? If you call yourself a sheik and an adept, you understand the triple rule of the adept chamber. And the 3 religious rites was what? Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And before all that, it was Zoroastrianism. Research it. And Islam, excuse me, Moors. But we got to remember, Jerusalem is considered the 3rd holiest city in Islam behind Mecca and Medina. You got to ask yourself why. I can show you in the religious books. That was because you can walk there. That's a whole nother lecture. If Muslims cannot make what? Hajj or the pilgrimage, where do they go? If they can't make it to Mecca or Medina, then according to many hadith writers, where do they go, Moors? Come on, this is simple research. When more trying to tear things down, and I say, man, this is all about you. You build bridges. You don't build walls, because we walk over the bridges. We built the roads. I can show you in language how they change things, to drop the breadcrumbs, because you're not researching language. They just changed the language. I'm telling you. They just changed the language. You got to understand this. But I promise you, the 3rd holiest city in Islam behind Mecca and Medina was Jerusalem. Period. If you research that, then hey, whatever. But if Muslims cannot make that, that's what you got to understand. Jerusalem is considered acceptable, Moors, in the eyesight of Allah, which is God. Moors, just because the person say Allah, if you go to so-called Middle East and they say yes, they pray to Allah, that don't mean they know Arab or they practice no Islam. That they'll tell you they believe in God. You can research this, but what we do, Negro, black, and colors, and even some brother with the fez on, we won't sit down and listen to a brother explain. We just get caught up in what we think. But perhaps, Moors, I need to teach this to my brothers of the ancient Egyptian Arabic orders of nobles of the mystic shrine. I just showed you the research, the potentates, which when I do lectures to my so-called Prince Hall brothers, and I say, man, I can show you all your literature who give you authority, a European. And this is all about you. The chief, the rabbis, the high priests, the prophets, the oriental guys, etc. Moors. The Shriners, the Masons, the Muslims, and the Islamic world do not have a clue about what's truly meant to touch and kiss the black stone, Moors, which was placed in what? The Kaaba, the Kabbalah, the Great Mosque, I'm telling you more. Ain't nothing scary about the Kabbalah. When I talk about the Baphomet, man, that's written Kabbalistically. That's the temple of Abiff. If you don't understand that, then something is wrong. Everything that's mythical that has to do with black and the animal character, they try to make evil. And I promise you, the ones that understand the craft, research Manly P. Hall, they'll tell you what the Baphomet is. Research Eliseus Levi, all that stolen knowledge that come from commit. They'll tell you what the Baphomet really is. By Abraham and his son, Moors. Ishmael, according to the Holy Quran. Sharif. I mean, if we're studying, all those of us who have acquired the knowledge of self have the duty, Moors, and the responsibility, Moors, to teach the world and rescue our history. And I have to use the right words in history. I'm not coming from no biased place. From these so-called Arab imposters. And when I show you, man, this work that's been done, not by Europeans, when I show you the Arab, when a professor, European, stayed with the true Arabs for 14 years. And also my book about the true Indian by another European that shows you that those Indians are one of the tribe of Israel. You have to listen to me. Who have the ethno-racial lineages to the Semites and are not the original inhabitants of Saudi Arabia, which was separated by the man-made Suez Canal. That's why when I say they changed the names, how? To draw up the bread lines, to draw up the breadcrumbs. This was made, man, this canal was made by Moors. It was called the Suez Canal, the Suezcanal, from Africa. And the European and Eurocentric propaganda and a European man renamed this territory, the Middle East. But in the study, man, of true geography, there is no such place called the Middle East. It's only a part of Northeast Africa or North of Mexico or Kibalan or whatever the heck you want to call it. That's why when I research and I study everything, when I say I take the good from everything else and we don't deal with the person, we don't deal with the pageantry because we're supposed to be scientists. It's brothers that written things when I say I'm a scientist and I deal with all wisdom. Like it's a brother, Dr. Wesley Muhammad. He's from the Nation of Islam. You know, he was a 5%er before. He wrote literature and I research it. His books that were titled The Black Arabia and the African Origin of Islam. And in that research, he uncovers some true Asiatic Hijaz, the ancient Saudi Arabia history, and the ethno-racial lineage of those original dark-skinned tribes who were connected to the Maghreb region of North Africa, in which I have found the brother's research to be valid. It's valuable work and it's relevant because you can research it as a scholar instead of arguing with the man. And I say, if you would adapt, if you a sheik, you ain't arguing over the religion. You research things that can be proven. Because we don't argue isms when you an adept, when you a Sufi, when you has 33 times 3. But he also authored another good book titled Moore's The Book of God, and it's an encyclopedia of proof that the black man also possesses a lot of good ancient Nubian history. But he is the father of civilization. Where's my other book? It's another book, biblical book. And it's called The Black Man, the Father of Civilization, Proved by Biblical History. If you can't get that, like I said, I print all this stuff for my brothers and sisters so we can debunk that Eurocentric propaganda. It's just what it is, you know? But also Dr. Yosef Ben Jacqueline, he published a book titled The Black Man of the Nile and His Family in 1973. And Moors, here is the first point of clarity. And I have to speak, and I'm speaking from scholarship. I'm not speaking from nobody's place. Because when a person say, what Arab, anybody is Arab if you speak the language. Anybody is Jew if you believe in Judaism. So we debunk Eurocentric propaganda. But the Arabs did not arrive nor invade Kemet or ancient Egypt until when, Moors? The 8th century AD, which means the greatness of Kemet and the Egyptian mystery systems were not destroyed by the Arabs because they did not arrive into Kemet until AD. Within the modern era, Moors, modern era, when brothers be saying, oh, read Hebrew, what? Modern Hebrew, that's gibberish if you ain't reading Paleo. But Egypt had been under assault by the Semites, the Jews in particular, Moors, Phoenicians, Romans, Assyrians, Greeks, etc., long before Arab colonists and enslavers arrived, Moors. But yet that is not to suggest, Moors, that upon the Arabs' arrival, that they did not desecrate the sacred temples and claim the history of the Kemetic as their own, and simultaneously and erroneously claim kinship to the original Nubians who occupied Kemet and all of North Africa. That's why when you're a scholar, when you do research more, as I have a book in my library, it's called Russian Icona by Vladimir Ivanov. Research on Amazon how much that wisdom costs. And it can show you pictures that the European, they're in there whitewashing the pictures. That's why in the book of Maccabees, it tell you that the heathen trying to whitewash themselves in the history books. You don't have to listen to me. This is the stuff that costs, and they try to lock it up because they know some brothers not going to spend their money on that. But I do. That's what I spend my life on and my earnings on. Because it's there. Right here in America. You don't got to go nowhere. You home. Don't you know if you were practicing science and nature in some other place, you would be killed? You would be killed if Greek philosophy was so great. The Greeks had occupied Egypt, Kemet, thousands of years before the Arabs, Moors. These so-called Arabs were a mix and a what? It was a mixture, a misgenerated or genitated or something that was, how can I say, constructed people. But the original inhabitants of Egypt were dark skinned, broad nose, kinky hair, negroids. But through race mixing, Moors, the misnomer, the Arab, the misnomer, the Indo-Europeans, in which Saudi Arabia, over periods of time, Moors, became more mulatto in skin color. And due to the European imperialism, Moors, the once geographically connected Arabia, which was part of and parcel of the original continent of Africa, which you can research in Dr. Yosef Ben Jacquemin called what? A Kibon, a maximum, was separated and was geographically reclassified as being part of the so-called Middle East. They were not Asiatics in the truest sense of the ethnic race classification. But science, that's why I say get out of the figure. Elijah Muhammad, Noble Drew Ali, brothers that did this research, Suleiman Ali, they both called us the Asiatic black man, Moors. We don't, you call yourself a Negro, black, and color, and those misnomers. Research the Africans in Asia. Research the Guanam Buddha. I give you the books. Research the Guanam Buddha. I give you all the books. It tell you who the Sambo, it tell you who the Nagas people is. When I show tapes of the young boy, when they ask him to spell niggas, the royal people, royalty, it's symbology. It's things made in stone they can't erase. The Arabs did not destroy the Egyptian mystery schools, yet they co-opted our history and culture by stealing our birthrights. In which Dr. Chancellor William, in the book titled The Destruction of Black Civilization, Great Issues of Race from 4500 BC to 2000 AD. But it does a thorough analysis of recording how the dark-skinned Nubians, Moors, were pushed out of Low Egypt, southward, and light-skinned impostors settled and began to occupy Kemet, and why European scholars have systematically whitened Egypt in order to claim this great civilization as their own. Look up at all the movies of Egypt back in the day when you see Europeans dressed up in brown skin. But when you look at the writings don't say that they were Europeans. It's the symbology, Moors. It's the symbols. I'm telling you, it's the symbology. No writings say they were Europeans. Everything tell you that they were Asiatic. Most of this was done prior to the Arabs' arrival in the late 600 and 700 AD. And their main objective was to impose Islam missionaries on the indigenous people of their region and exploit the commercial interests they had in these black lands, which were rich in natural resources. I'm telling you, man. Why you think Arabs, the so-called, they wanted to bring some Al-Islam to us that was already there? We already have religion. When I show you about the guide, when I show you that they are the real Jews, the Igbos of Nigeria, we already have some. Why you think they wanted to create Al-Islam in Africa, in the Kibbaline, and we already had it? You got to research it, man. And make you strip you of your language and have you speaking the language foreign. I'm telling you. We will one day, Moors, soon be like the first Muzin or the Musin. We know what that is. A call to prayer. And have the responsibility of bringing all of humanity back to the path of God, of Allah, known as the great architect of this universe, Moors. Right? Somebody talk to me. Bilal Ibn Rabah, who was a dark-skinned Ethiopian slave who converted to Islam and became one of the Prophet Muhammad's close companions. And he, Moors, had this beautiful voice. And Muhammad gave him the duty to do what, Moors? To call the faithful to prayer. The black man, the Asiatic man of America, is that symbolic one. And the prophet was even recorded as saying that he saw Belial's footsteps entering heaven before his very own, Moors. Some of the enlightened world knows that Freemasonry will continue to play a huge role in the world affairs, Moors, because it is so intertwined in social, political, and economic affairs of humanity, Moors. The New Age movement and those who search out ancient texts and who, like the Sufis, the highest form of the mystic Islam, and the Hindus and the Jews who became more inspired by the teachings of the Kabbalah and see the value and credibility in mystical teachings in Freemasonry as one of those schools of thought that will continue to lead one to various paths of understanding, Moors, relative to spirituality, outside of religion and traditions. We got to get out of that traditional mess. The enlightenment is forever involving Moors, and new interpretations of Masonic speculative knowledge will continue to be needed in order to build upon some of the unfinished Masonic work, Moors, that became disrupted and stagnant when the horrid crime took place at of Solomon's temple, and it was to teach us deeper moral lessons about human behavior and how brotherhood has to be strengthened by a cable tow that has stronger than any physical string or rope, Moors. We have to understand this wisdom, but it must be rooted in the best of human character and strengthened by unconditional love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We are our brother's keepers, Moors. So when we see a Ruffian spirit beginning to rise in our personal lives, Moors, or in our Masonic houses, Moors, we should not allow any deviations from practicing the true landmarks of Freemasonry and never allow the type of spirit of betrayal to take root, Moors. What will happen, Moors? It will negatively impact our Masonic organizational structure, and what will happen, Moors? It was to start betraying that led to the premature death of our Grand Master, Hiram Abiff. Watch this. But now in the biblical book of Kings, the Hiram from the land of Tyre and the Masonic Hiram Abiff are not the same individual, Moors. Watch this. And our story is mere allegory, which is pointing us toward mastering all the principles given to us and our understanding of the foundation of Freemasonry that comes from living by the principles of morality, friendship, brotherly love, truth, peace, freedom, justice. Building that true temple that Yeshua ben Yosef, which is Jesus, the son of Joseph, talked about, which was building a temple that wasn't an external or wasn't an esoteric and or physical temple. What? The tabernacle built without hands, Moors. Everything in that physical tabernacle, from everything that was supposed to be put in the tabernacle, from the curtains to the dressing to the design, all that has to do with the inside of your physical body, from the veins to the brain, to the left side, to the right side, to the hippocampus, everything from your chakras, everything. But building a temple having spiritual value and not material value. This alone should be force us all to always seek the higher elevation of using our knowledge to create a new paradigm. When I talk about 360, it's just the sum total of material wisdom. But 720 is the total sum of material and spiritual wisdom, Moors. You must master your higher self. But the greatest temple is constructed from within, Moors. Man, when I was training in high school, when I was playing basketball and I was in my lower self, man, my father used to always tell me, son, you work your way. You work from in to out, not the other way, meaning you get hot from the inside. And once you have mastered your inside game, you bring it out. That's using the analogy. But the human spirit and the soul, which leads us to true immortality. We get caught up in this allegorical story of somebody telling you, well, look, they're killing people, they're doing these rituals. And I'm telling you, they laughing. And I'm laughing at it. You don't get caught up with no Negro, no black, no color, no more telling you some fake stuff. But I will always challenge my Masonic brothers, my Prince Hall Masons, even my Moorish brothers, to be better students of knowledge, and work to move beyond just being engulfed in the social, in the physical. I refuse to have allowed myself to being raised from a dead level, from a shallow grave, that we supposed to have been raised, Moors, to a living perpendicular, erect, on the square, circling my square, letting out the fire, and then allow myself to be deposited back into a grave of ignorance or darkness and voluntary, and put the blindfold back on and put the veil back on. Morris, once you're raised from a dead level to a living perpendicular erect, it took us out of the coffin and stood us up 90 degrees upright to a living perpendicular, Moors. No more blindfold when you see in this European Masonry Prince Hall. No more blindfold. Awakening to enlightenment. This symbolically represents a new birth and a resurrection from the dead. Are we clear, Moors? My brothers and sisters, man, we must allow our personal path and journey to always lead us to having an open mind and use our acquisition of this great mystical and mystic knowledge to better humanity, Moors, to better ourselves. When we received a substitute word because we were taught at the death of the Grand Master Hiram Abiff, the true master word was forever lost. I promise you. That's why when a European, I don't care, Prince Hall, once they become through the 32 and 33 degrees, they put on the fez and they become shrine, they become sons of Muslims, and they, assalamu alaikum. I'm telling you, man. But it is our present day duty to search out the lost word by being good students of Masonry. There lie the value of character and ethics. This is the ultimate fiber, Moors, that will strengthen and hold Masonry together, along with knowing how to apply the working tools, and implement the square and the compass to enlighten the world with truth and direction beyond our commitment to our so-called York Rite and our so-called Scottish Rite. The working tool should serve as a moral compass to give humanity direction, and it becomes useless. It becomes useless to have all this wisdom and knowledge that have been passed down through the ages by our ancient master teachers, our gurus, our sages, and we allow our obligation of Negro, black, and colors, even some Moors, to never reveal and always conceal the teachings of the secrets of Masonry, to deny us the right and privilege to help awaken those that sleep. Moors, when I say, yeah, I took an oath, and my oath is to always operate on love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, my 2 cents, health, and wealth. And I will not violate that oath. But what manner of man will hide his light under a bushel basket? We let our light shine, and we debunk that crap. We're not hiding them. This science is for our men, women, and children. If you understand 9 to the 9th power of 9, if you understand your fez, and if you understand everything about that fez, if you understand when you graduated from college, you understand what that tassel on that brimless hat about. But the symbolic story of Hiram Abiff, Moors, is one of the world's best kept secrets in the world. And I have to say this, and I'm not going to call it white supremacy. I'm going to call it Eurocentric propaganda, ideas. They only give us the symbolic teachings of the greatest Grand Master ever recorded and the ritualistic teachings of the Blue Lodge, Masonry. But the true interpretation of Hiram Abiff's story, Moors, was never revealed to the so-called man. And I'm repeating history, man, and a person can remove religious dogma. There are Caucasian Masons of even much higher degrees than 33. I'm telling you, I just lectured with 20 of them who bow down in private to the origin of the black man being God, and they worship you in secrecy. When I say only problem I have when Negro, black, and colors, they like, oh, what type of thing you got on your... When I go on college campuses, when I go around other Masons and other nationalities, they know right off top. Because most of them are European Masonries. Because this Masonic, because this Masonic folklore, Moors, gives way to a people who were hit in the head at the East Gate, which is a Maxima, and were forcibly brought on a westerly Masonic folklore, gives way to a people who were hit in the head, like I said. to that what? To that Eurocentric, that Western course, and was ultimately murdered and buried where? In a shallow grave, in which three of the major perpetrators were England, France, and America. When you start researching Mason documents, and when you talk about some silent brotherhood of the East and the mystic shrine of nobles of the Arabic order, you say, man, they'll tell you they copied the wisdom. and they pose as principal perpetrators. It was their imperialism, colonism, and chattel slavery, Moors, via that time during the transatlantic slave trade and the Middle Passage that led the final blow to murdering the real Hiram Abiff, the so-called black man of Africa and North America. And the blow caused us to lose our land, names, God, culture, folkways, and mores. I'm telling you. Like I said earlier, man, the three European white nations, or Albion nations, have hid and buried some of our ancient knowledge, identity, and wisdom, and secret vaults. Where? In the international libraries and museums. I keep telling Morris, most of the literature, Masonic is two thoughts in the world: theology and Masonry. And a lot of that stuff is locked up in Cambridge and Oxford libraries and in the European libraries. And I have elders that work at both of the research places and museums in Oxford and Europe, where everything is there. When I show you pictures in Egypt, they're Moors. And then the white Grand Lodges in Europe, America, Canada, and Australia have committed themselves to never allow the true Hiram Abiff story to be revealed. And some of it is even hidden in Israel, Jordan, Syria, Egypt, and Turkey, Moors. If you're a student, these four Muslim and Islamic nations have had a long history of involvement in Freemasonry, in spite of its so-called Middle Eastern adherents of having to survive in nations that have historically viewed Masonry as heretic. Both Sunni and Shia Islamic nations have outlawed Freemasonry as being anti-Islamic, and those caught practicing Freemasonry in some of these Muslim societies would become subjects of Sharia law and killed. And I'm telling you, I'm not coming from nobody's place. When the Prince Hall European Mason, once they cross 32 and 32 degrees, when they put the fez on with the Asiatic woman, the sword, they practice al-Islam. No different from European Christianity. Some pie in the sky. Not connected themselves with God. That's what they're not revealing to you. If any preacher or master mason, he know the history, but he ain't going to teach it to you. I promise you. If your preacher or master mason, he know the science, because he have to know it. But I have now had the knowledge and the invitation to sit in meetings with international implications and discuss Masonry with some of the best Masonic intellectuals, Masonic scholars in the world within these research societies. And they know our history better than some of the Moors themselves and some of the so-called Prince Hall, whatever you want to call yourself. That's why I challenge their often so-called European worldview and share with Afrocentric, a Moorish-centric view, an Asiatic-centric view of the ancient craft of Freemasonry. And I have always done this unapologetically, Moors, with a silver tongue, eloquently, with research. The three Masonic ruffians who conspired against the master builder Hiram Abiff had motives and objectives of stealing the masterful architecture plans, the blueprints, and the drawings that were inspired by the great God, and fraudulent tried to obtain the master mason password, which I just gave to you. What you do not know, Moors, they were not just architect drawings, but they were scrolls that devolved into the highest science of mathematics, astronomy, physics, in which had been passed down by the Kemetic master builders who built the pyramids and other sacred geometry, Moors. This knowledge was much more than right angles and perpendiculars. I'm telling you, Moors, this is the science. We almost done. This is school. We only been going an hour. We got 15 more minutes. But the lessons had a more spiritual meaning, which were passed down to Hiram Abiff, who had rightful ownership, Moors, of this knowledge because he had been properly initiated, entered, passed, and raised to the sublime degree, Moors. the ruffians did not have all the signs, the tokens, and words that would have allowed them to cross over into Joppa, to miss and or to overlook the value of suitable proficiency requirements. It's no different than understanding the mathematics is Islam, and Islam is mathematics, Moors. The knowledge has to be given and received right and exact, because these lessons were rooted in the ancient mystic knowledge of those who had traveled and studied the mystic schools and had to be self-mastered and understood the wisdom that was revealed in the celestial and the terrestrial spheres, represented in the symbolic columns of Jachin and Boaz, which typifies beauty and strength, in which they had organized to steal and was unveiling to continue on the road and path less traveled, Moors. The conspirators also understood, Moors, that Hiram Abiff, the Asiatic black man, the Asiatic man, would lay out his scientific and knowledge of engineering on the trestle board relative to building King Solomon's temple. Moors, the timber was transported from Lebanon, and it was of special quality, and numbers of laborers were astronomical. But this 15 fellow craft refusing to following and learning the skill set of the operative masonry, who knew how to melt down brass and or precious metals into supporting the decorum and the beautification of the temple, Moors, which according to biblical history was destroyed 3 times, Moors. They sought to engage in a conspiracy against the Grand Master. The construction was systematically aligned with the spiritual and geographical motions and movements of the sun, Moors, lessons in the winter solace and the summer solace, which ties masonry direct to studying and understanding many aspects of the universal order of things, and particularly knowing the mathematics and astronomy of the universal order and how the divine laws function, Moors, as it relates to the sun, moon, and the stars, the motions and the divine principles, having meanings far beyond the emblematic, and many have found deeper meaning into the zodiacs and the numerology, Moors. What am I talking about when I speak up on that? This is what I'm talking about. When Moors dissing things. We're talking about the Clock of Destiny, Volume 1. The Clock of Destiny, Volume 2. This explained the science, man. This explained the science and the wisdom. One of our great Masonic Moorish Masons, C.M. Bay, authored this. Other brothers tried to, redo it. But if you don't give credit to the original thought, that's plagiarism. When I talk about peer-reviewed scholarly research, if you don't give credit to the original thought, it's plagiarism. And I don't care who rewritten something. The Clock of Destiny comes from our great Masonic Master Mason, 33 times 3, C.M. Bay. You can research that in the Library of Congress. It's there. But these Masonic moral lessons, Moors, they were designed to teach us. They were designed to teach us that each degree and the work it involved pursuant to the entered apprentice, the fellow craft, and a master mason, degree should be taught and met with the highest level of seriousness, and internationalized, in which this training is non-negotiable. It should allow us to travel to foreign lands and territories unimpeded, because we have been invested with the proper password and be able to obtain higher wages. When I see Moors just talking niggardly things, I say, Moors, this is a holistic thing. How you operating out of business? I used to be on Instagram, and I used to show how I travel all over as a contractor, doing business. When I tell brothers and sisters the dynamics of a nonprofit, that's how I go on college campuses. That's how I teach. I have real nonprofit businesses. Our t-shirt printing business is nonprofit, to where we go in and teach the kids how to do their own t-shirts and clothing and make their own designs, so you don't have to worry about spending your resources with somebody else. Our strength and conditioning, healthy eating and living instructor, where we go into schools and we teach this, and we do it with in-kind service. We go into communities. The Burning Bush Tabernacle Science Temple and School, where we teach metaphysics, local and state and federal law, committed and adapt science, alchemy, healthy eating and living, history, our story, and nonprofit small business startup. This is how I'm able to go in places. Because when they look me up, they ask me to come speak, and I do it. But what it's supposed to do more, it's supposed to teach us something. It's supposed to teach us the knowledge. It's supposed to teach us that the conspirators had only obtained partial knowledge. They only obtained partial knowledge. They were just fellow craft and not master masons. I don't care what sign they put on them. I don't care if they have the symbols. But this is all ours. They can have the signs and symbols with when I tell more we have to read things counterclockwise. Let me take something off, but I want to just display something. When nobody not explaining nothing to you, you thinking something belongs to somebody else when it's all your science. But it should be explained. Let me see, can I get this off real fast? The HTWSSTKS. Research. That ain't no European masonry, Moors. This ain't no European masonry. I'm telling you, if you explain it eloquently, and then a person will bow down. I'm telling you. I guarantee you. And I come from scholarship as a Master Moorish Mason, as a Master Moorish Adapt, period. But they only obtain knowledge. They only attain a lower level of material wisdom, a fellow craftsman, not a Master Mason. But it would become their lower self, which controls emotions and ego, and one of the 7 chakras that led them to become jealous and envy, Moors, of the knowledge of our Grandmaster Hiram Abiff, of that knowledge had obtained, and because of this, the Eurocentric propaganda were not willing to exemplify patience as good students, but they had plans to stealing the architecture knowledge of Hiram Abiff, the master builder. Are you with me, Moors? We almost done. We almost done. In the medieval Europeans who were involved in the science, trades, and craftsmanship were valued because it determined whether or not they had obtained the necessary workman skills to be elevated and move forward in the ancient trade guilds associations, which would be equivalent to the modern day labor unions, and each stage of mastering the knowledge. Man, why you think when you watch movies and you watch the Teamsters and you watch Sopranos and you see their unions, you got to connect things. It impacts one's wages. It ultimately determined socioeconomic mobility. The operation skill set mastering had many incentives, and each lesson was predicted on learning and mastering the previous knowledge to know what? Thyself and Father God Allah. Let's be clear, Moors, that the Nubian, Nile Valley civilizations of the Upper and Lower Kemet, which is Egypt, had been engaged in the mystery system of initiations and were the originators of the operative masonry and speculative masonry, long before the Europeans, who during the medieval period had become quasi-awakened, and even after Moors, even after this initiation historical phenomenon, they were once again enlightened by who? The Black Moors, the 8th century. And I'm not speaking of Arabs and Berbers per se. You can research J.A. Rogers, who authored a 3-volume set titled Sex and Race. And if there is any hidden or hard to find ancient historical information about black civilization, Moors, Rogers Ordinary is that's my original source. You can go to that for scholarship. When I was showing people that J.A. Rogers, this is an Asiatic man, and they use it on the college campuses. When I showed them, they jaw dropped. When I showed that it was 6 black presidents. They don't tell you that in history, but I got it and we debunk it. He has some very good information on the Moors and their ethno-racial kingdoms before and after the 8th century, Moors. Like the likes of Imhotep and Akhenaten, the Kemetic history tells us that much of what Europeans incorporated in England, France, and Scotland relative to Freemasonry was stolen and lifted from Kemet, Moors. The United Grand Lodge of England, whose so-called convened and established the first body of organized Freemasons in the world in 1717, Moors, did not give credit nor recognize the Kemetic mystery schools. The Eurocentric mindset has never allowed many of the Europeans of yesterday and today to pay homage to the original master builders in Kemet and Kush. The black man, the Asiatic man, is under the symbolic disguise of symbolism, is the true Hiram of being shrouded in mystery and coded in Masonic allegory, Moors. That's just a fact. That's just a fact, Moors. I'm telling you, I love you all, Moors. I got to get some rest, man, because I just want to highlight the lecture I did on campus. If you're interested in the literature, like I said, all my students have the literature. Research how much the literature, all them books that I show cost on Amazon. I have a whole library in my office downstairs where we teach at. The books. And I have literature that can debunk anything. Man, we taught this craft. We taught this science and this masonry. I give it to you all over, man, over and over and over of who crossed the who walked the shrine and who are the sons of Muslims. You can ask any lower level Mason. You can ask any lower level Mason. You can ask any Prince Hall Mason. They'll tell you. And I repeat again that there is no longer any need. When I say should Moorish Americans seek to become Masons and Shriners, let me repeat this. If you're under the right auspices, I teach this. No, there is no longer any need, because our prophet Noble Drew Ali, and if you a sheik, if you a adept, if you a master mason, raised from the shallow grave, 33 times 3, then you don't need to go into those European houses, because you get that in your divine instruction, number 2, Moors. When the tarba and the mistra, which is the turban, is placed on your capta or your crown, and we are given the science. I'm telling you, man. Noble Drew Ali came through the shrine by compass and square. He used the compass to keep all his carnal desires under control, picked up the square to straighten out all the crooked places of fallen humanity, to make the corners of our conduct square. I'm telling you. Who among the highest of Rome enter Islam by practice? Answer, Masons. At what degree? 32 degrees. The secret password, I gave it to you. Assalamu alaikum. They know this. What occurs then? A Mason bows to his knees to Islam, practicing that God is God, becoming a practicing Muslim. Muslim. Why are Shriners considered the joke of Masonry? Because they left Christianity to practice a religion other than that of their forefathers' religion, while still living in a Christian country. I mean, I give it to you, man. We got to know this, man. I love you all, Moors. Love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, health, and wealth. Peace.